Ghost ships have been drifting through the sea for centuries, their sails torn, their decks empty.
I can hear water splashing around underneath of me.
But what if these ghost ships aren't just empty hulls? What if there's something out there, hiding, waiting for more unsuspecting sailors? Join us as we uncover the mystery.
Personne à bord? Nobody on board?
2 years ago, the Thai Navy encountered a mysterious vessel near the Gulf of Thailand. Alert and worried, the sailors aboard made several attempts to contact the vessel, but to no avail. Finally, after a few hours of meddling about, the sailors hopped aboard, only to find a chilling silence and a big mystery that has yet to be solved. Sure, they identified the vessel had belonged to a Chinese charter, but its crew and passenger hadn't been seen ever since it had first set off. The Thai sailors wondered if this was some devilish plot, maybe even a spy. But there's been a lull since, suggesting something worse, far beyond our imagination, took them. British voyage. A couple of months ago, a British sailor spotted this off the coast. From a distance, it looks like some sort of a tower or a bridge, but focus on the shape on the right. It could be the silhouette of a ghost ship. The thing is, ghost ships aren't really that strange a phenomena. They have been reported countless times, especially near the British coast. If it really is a ghost ship, its return could suggest that there's a far deeper force at play here. Because why now? What could these ghost ships want that they're reappearing? Really, it's anyone's guess at this point. Mummy returns.
Personne à bord? Nobody on board?
A lone yacht was discovered off the Philippine coast in 2016 with a mummified body on board. The man, identified as German sailor Manfred Fritz Bajoret, appeared to have passed away from natural causes during his solo voyage. Bajoret had been sailing solo for years. Experts believed he had passed away from a heart attack, and the dry ocean air preserved his remains. His yacht was filled with personal items, untouched by looters or weather. However, years later, people are beginning to wonder if Bajoret's fate was really accidental, prompting the conspiracy that a mysterious, perhaps even supernatural force took his soul, which might explain why he was found perfectly preserved. Wolfhound.
From the Irish Yacht Club.
In 2013, the Ocean Research Project, a non-profit organization, stumbled upon an abandoned sailboat in the middle of the Atlantic, about 800 miles from Bermuda. The vessel, called Wolfhound, caught their attention, and team member Matt Rutherford decided to board it. Inside, he found a disorganized but mostly intact interior, filled with personal belongings. While the boat's exterior was in decent shape, its engine had failed. Unsure of the next step, the team attempted to tow the larger vessel. However, the strain soon proved too much, causing their own engine to seize, forcing them to release the Wolfhound. Later, their discovery video revealed the boat's backstory. It belonged to Alan McGettigan, who had abandoned it weeks earlier after mechanical issues. Last man standing.
Divers gave him an oxygen mask and put him in a diving bell to get him to 30 meters to the surface.
The ocean is a terrifying enemy. You're left on your own. With the ocean's savage mood your only opponent, chances of survival are low, incredibly low. And one man's story, thought of survival, is incredibly harrowing. Harrison Oconee was discovered by rescue divers while they explored a recent shipwreck. To everyone's surprise, Harrison was completely fine, having found himself somehow and miraculously safe from the water by being in an air pocket. The only survivor on board, Harrison was a cook for the boat, and although saved, he'd spent 3 days in numbing water. Now, all in all, a good story. Floridian nightmare. Empty and desolate, this ghost ship was discovered off of Key Largo, Florida. The people who discovered the ship weren't the only one. Apparently, tourists had spotted the ship, but it was a few good days after that. it was finally recorded. But even after coming up this close, this ghost ship somehow made it out without being captured. Even in the video, you can see its rusty vessel pick up a scary pace. Now, while we can talk about the waves taking the ship along them, there is an interesting theory. With all that's going on in the world, people are beginning to wonder if the crew was somehow picked up by an unknown force and the ship abandoned. Flying Dutch. And here we have it, folks. A boat lifting off into the air after presumably floating on shore for a while. The video was taken by a sailor who not only remains anonymous, but is also presumed missing. This short clip was apparently recovered off the missing sailor's own empty vessel and has since prompted several theories. Some say the sailor was taken aboard by the Flying Dutchman, though not willingly. Some think the sailor was silenced because he'd captured the Flying Dutchman in action. Of course, we're all hoping for a better ending. But things are really beginning to look bleak, especially since no one will speak about this incident. Gallows Bay.
What we're looking at here is the shaft tunnel, the stern end of the ship.
Gallows Bay in Maryland has been receiving sunken ships since before 2000. However, the frequency of boats reaching the shore has only been increasing year by year. And with these boats comes a grave mystery. Whom do these mystery fleets belong to? Why were they abandoned? Were they abandoned? Sadly, we won't know much. Although these ships have been arriving on shore, most of them have spent several years underwater, so they don't retain any identifiable features. The only thing tying them together is their physical appearance, which is why some think it could be a mystery fleet from decades ago, ravaged by either the ocean or an underlying sinister force. Pumice raft. In August 2019, sailors encountered a colossal raft of floating pumice rock, roughly the size of Manhattan, drifting toward Australia. This unusual formation consisted of volcanic stones, ranging from marble to basketball-sized chunks. About 90% of the pumice remained underwater, while the rest floated above, creating an iceberg-like effect. The sailors who encountered it described an eerie scene, with the ocean turning matte and the rocks appearing to surround them. Some even believed this was no coincidence. Perhaps a hidden force was creating this surface to confuse sailors. Well, it worked well enough to ward off sailors for a long time. Shatak and Bella. In 2023, Australian sailor Timothy Shatak set out with his dog Bella on a 728-mile journey from Mexico to French Polynesia. But their adventure turned into survival when harsh weather stranded them in the middle of the Indian Ocean. For 3 months, they survived on tuna and rainwater until a Mexican tuna trawler found them 1,200 miles from land. Shatak credited Bella for keeping his spirits up and expressed gratitude to the rescuers. Despite the ordeal, Shatak remained passionate about the ocean, stating he wouldn't give up sailing. Well, cheers. But most of us wouldn't go back.
Yeah. How are you doing? You okay?
The Flying Dutchman. We've all heard of the Flying Dutchman, the ghost ship that truly lives up to its name and is rumored to float in the sky instead of the sea. Of course, like all tales, the Flying Dutchman has been chalked off as a myth, but after an explorer recovered a lost sailor's camera, the Flying Dutchman is beginning to look a lot more real. Here is a glimpse into the recovered footage, a vessel clearly taking flight. Sure, it could have been a plane or drone of some sort, but one dressed this elaborately back in the 80s? Pretty challenging. And if it weren't caught on camera, we'd put it off as a mirage, but with proof, like this. Ogopogo's Wrath. More than 100 years ago, a Canadian scow drifted towards Niagara Falls. It vanished, with no trace of its crew or passengers. Over the following years, people would visit the exact spot it went missing, but would find no discernible trace of it, save for a wedged rock, which most took as a landmark to honor the loss. At some point, the tale of the missing boat became forgotten completely, and then, in 2019, after unexpected weather, something even more unexpected happened. The rock drifted above, and turns out it was the missing scow all along. Some say the men aboard lost their lives, but now people are wondering if they became victims to the Ogopogo, the Canadian Loch Ness. Superior vessel. After getting lost on Lake Superior, a man spotted something strange. He had been floating around for a while, almost losing hope of finding the right direction thanks to the lake's size. And then, in the distance, from the fog, emerged a shadow of some sort. Initially thinking he was seeing a cell tower from afar, the man inched closer, but realized this was definitely something else. Weirdly, the location, the sudden appearance, and the size of the vessel made him question if he was seeing a mirage of sorts. But when he pulled out the camera and could still spot it, he knew he'd stumbled upon something. Sadly, before he could investigate, the waves pulled the vessel back. USS Kittiwake. If you visit the Cayman Islands and take a deep dive, you'll discover an unexpected dive site, a shipwreck. Surprisingly intact, most of the ship remains preserved and can even be toured. And while it's certainly a fun exploration, it holds a depressing history. The shipwreck is the USS Kittiwake, a Chanticleer-class submarine rescue vessel in commission from 1946 to 1994. This one was only discovered a few years ago, and yet it's still somehow miraculously intact. The thing is, shipwrecks like these aren't really that unusual or out of the ordinary. But this one is, because it really doesn't look like it was taken down by anything but something sinister. Floating torpedo. While boating with his girlfriend near Dana Point Harbor, Sean Sheehan spotted something strange floating in the water. From a distance, it looked like a surfboard, but as they approached, they realized it had propellers. Sean soon recognized the object as an 8-foot Navy torpedo. After notifying the Orange County Sheriff's Department, officials confirmed it was a lightweight Navy practice torpedo. The Navy quickly assured everyone it was not live, putting safety concerns to rest. Though the torpedo was recovered, its presence prompted questions. The Navy explained that such devices are used in training exercises, and while most are collected, a few occasionally slip through the cracks. But how honest was the Navy? What if something deeper was at play? Megalodon returns. Off the Massachusetts coast, a massive shark appeared, captured on video by a marine biodiversity student. The footage spread like wildfire, sparking questions that couldn't be ignored. Some online users were quick to ask, could this be a megalodon? The legendary shark, thought to be extinct, was a creature of myth, or was it? Experts later identified the shark as a basking shark, a species that can grow to nearly 26 feet in length. But with its intimidating size, the question lingered. Could there still be a megalodon out there, hiding in the depths, unseen for so long? Sargasso Sea. In the North Atlantic lies the Sargasso Sea, a peculiar place that's intrigued sailors for centuries. It's known for dense patches of sargassum seaweed floating on its surface, creating an eerie sight. Christopher Columbus encountered these waters during his voyages in the 15th century, noting their stillness and lack of winds, which made navigation unusually challenging. Over time, the Sargasso Sea earned a reputation in maritime lore, with tales of ships trapped by the seaweed and mysterious disappearances of crews. Some stories even mention sea monsters lurking beneath, pulling vessels under. While science dismisses these myths, there have been more and more cases that stir suspicion. What if the sea really is haunted by monsters of the deep? The Devil's Sea. The Devil's Sea, or Dragon's Triangle, has baffled sailors for ages. Sitting near Japan in the Pacific, it's part of the vile vortices, areas on Earth where electromagnetic forces seem unusually strong. This triangle stretches from Japan to the Bonin Islands, though no one knows its exact size or limits. Legends say it's a hotspot for shipwrecks and strange disappearances. One of the oldest stories comes from Kublai Khan's failed attempts to invade Japan in the 1200s. His fleet was destroyed, taking thousands of lives with it. Centuries later, researchers found remnants of his ships, giving some truth to the tale. In the 1940s and 50s, fishermen reported boats vanishing in the same waters. Nobody knows why, not even today. Amazonian sirens. The Amazon rainforest is mysterious enough, but now we've got reports of an unknown creature lurking in the area. Take a look at this video. It was taken by a tourist who thought he was just filming a dolphin or something. But when the video was brought to local tour guides, they clearly communicated this was no animal. So what was it? Well, mermaids aren't the fantastical creatures that we think they are. So if they're beginning to appear in the Amazon, there's a good chance they've always existed there and are simply emerging because they're no longer afraid. Aokigahara mermaid. Places like Japan and China have long been shrouded in mystery, not only because they've got a rich supernatural and mythical history, but they also hide a lot if something goes awry, which might explain why this video of a Japanese mermaid hasn't picked up as much as you'd expect it to. The video was apparently recorded by a local explorer, who for some reason refused to share the location, or even his own identity. But some believe this was taken in a secluded portion of the Aokigahara forest. There's a theory that the Japanese government is secretly conspiring with mermaids, which might explain why this is the only information we have at the time. Hawaiian Dutch. Some say the Flying Dutchman is a lot more than just a myth. They think the ship really does exist, except it disguises itself as a regular vessel and only ever takes off into the sky when people aren't close. Of course, whether or not you believe the myth is up to you. But recently, one tourist spotted something off the Hawaiian coast from their hotel window. There, see it? Clearly a ship. But is it floating seamlessly on water? Not exactly. Now, some do think that this could be Fata Morgana, a mirage of sorts, but now that the world is headed to a different direction, something like this just can't be a coincidence. Mary Celeste. In 1872, the Mary Celeste became the center of one of history's most puzzling sea mysteries. The ship, captained by Benjamin Briggs, had set sail from New York to Italy, but when the British ship DEI Gracia found it drifting in the Atlantic, something was off. The ship was intact, its cargo of alcohol untouched, but its crew had disappeared entirely. Investigations ruled out pirates or natural disasters, and the ship's log showed no unusual events leading up to their disappearance. To this day, no one knows what happened to the crew of the Mary Celeste, but some believe they were taken by mysterious forces. Ellen Austin. While passing through the Bermuda Triangle, Captain John Baker of the Ellen Austin spotted a ship adrift. After 2 days of failed attempts to make contact, he and his crew boarded the silent vessel, only to find it deserted. The ship was fully stocked with supplies, adding to the mystery. Captain Baker sent a crew to man it, and both vessels sailed together. But after 2 days, a sudden storm separated them, and the drifting ship disappeared. Days later, the captain located the vessel again and sent another crew to recover it. Once more, the ship and crew vanished without explanation. The event left the ship's owner so disturbed that he sold the company, ending the Ellen Austin's legacy. The Kalush. On the island of Chiloé, a thick fog sometimes rolls in, bringing with it eerie music and distant voices. As the tide recedes, a glowing figure often emerges from the mist. The Kalush, a brilliant white ship where music and laughter fill the air, as though a never-ending party is aboard. Kalush's tale is steeped in mystery. Some say it's alive, drawing sailors into its glow, never to return. Others believe it carries those who drowned, given a second life by water spirits. Another story claims warlocks steer the ship, trading wealth for dark promises. Those who hear its call but refuse are said to become seals or sea lions. Well, that's enough sea for the day. Mermaid Tale. Just past year, as the Eddie Aikau Big Wave Invitational raged on, spectators witnessed more than just great surfers trying out their luck. This happened around 3 p.m. on December 15th, and was thankfully captured on camera. Right as the surfers took on one of the big waves, there seems to be a shadow appearing in the waves. From afar, it initially looks like a dugong of some sort, judging by the size, but if it were true, most locals would have eagerly reported it. Now though, there's big talk about what it could be. Some say this is the ultimate proof that the oceans really are filled with fantastical creatures like mermaids, which this looks to be. A dreaded print. Almost a decade ago, an Animal Planet crew went into the deep ocean for research. There they were, cooped up in their sub, surrounded by nothing but darkness, hoping to find out more about oceanic creatures. The crew inched deeper, when all of a sudden, a mysterious creature whizzed ahead, but not before stamping their sub for a second. Although it happened instantaneously, it was enough to capture the creature's forelimbs, and here's a glimpse into them. Now right off the bat, you know this isn't anything normal. What marine creature has human-like hands like this? Unless, of course, this is a mermaid that we're looking at. Norwegian wreckage. Just 2 years ago, a diver off the coast of Norway discovered a giant, mysterious wreckage on the seabed. Curious, he called the experts and got a closer look. To everyone's surprise, the Norwegian wreckage was actually a submarine, and not even Norwegian. It had hailed all the way from Britain, a good 83 years after it had first submerged. That's right, as of now, this submarine is a good 86 years old. So if you do the math, you can tell it had witnessed the atrocities of the Second World War. But how did a submarine end up in this condition when it hadn't even engaged in tough battles? That is something we're still hoping to find out. Unsinkable Baychimo. The SS Baychimo, a cargo steamer that began its career in 1914, was used mainly for trading, carrying furs and goods. There was nothing unusual about it until 1931. On a routine Arctic voyage, the ship became stuck in ice. The crew decided to leave it behind, expecting to return later when conditions improved. But when they came back, the ship was gone. After scouring the area and finding nothing, they assumed the Arctic had taken it. But soon, an Inuit spotted the ship, 45 miles from its original location. Despite being in poor condition, the crew thought it would sink. But it was seen again in 1969, and some still say they've spotted the ghost ship of the Arctic. SS Cotopaxi. The SS Cotopaxi vanished in 1925 during a voyage from Charleston, South Carolina to Havana, Cuba. The captain's final report mentioned rough weather near the Bermuda Triangle. Then, without warning, communication ceased, and the ship was never seen again. The mystery lasted until 2015, when a sunken wreck near St. Augustine, Florida, was identified as the Cotopaxi. However, it was only partially solved. While we did recover the Cotopaxi, what really happened to its crew is still a question that hangs over our heads, because despite multiple investigations, no one has really been able to lock on a theory. There's a chance the crew was lured by sirens and forced to disappear. Schooner's loss. The Carroll A. Deering, a 5-masted schooner, ran aground on Diamond Shoals in 1921, leaving a trail of mystery. The Coast Guard discovered it abandoned, with untouched cargo and missing lifeboats. This sparked ideas that the crew may have fled. Captain Willis Wormel's final logbook entries were unsettling, mentioning strange ships following them. The last note was made on January 29th, just before the ship was found. Despite detailed investigations, the crew's fate remains unknown. Was it a planned escape, a natural disaster, or something unexplainable? In 1922, the case was declared unsolved, adding another mystery to maritime history. Sirenalia. We think mermaids and sirens are beautiful creatures, but their actions hide far scarier intentions. It is believed that sirens are actually grotesque creatures who mask their appearance by making ethereal tunes. These tunes attract sailors, and as soon as they're in the siren's clutch, these sailors disappear off the face of Earth. While long dismissed as fantastical lore, one sailor's experience is questioning all that we know. Just listen to this. These strange, almost unbelievable sounds are allegedly coming from sirens. something the sailor wholeheartedly believes in. According to him, sirens often try to lure sailors, but he escaped only because he knew he had to. Ghost ship.
I was sitting here working, and I just started hearing this eerie sound. I can't even explain.
If you're living in the US, you might have noticed that there's something strange going on. Mysterious fogs, weird occurrences, and now we've got a fleet of ghost ships being spotted near every coast, accompanied by the fog almost every time, and yet never getting close enough to be captured. Here's an account by a seaside worker who even claims this fog appears out of nowhere and quickly recedes, taking the image of the ghost ship along. Even now, it's hard to tell, but if you focus on the far right, you'll see the silhouette of the ghost ship. What do you think it could be? Some sort of warning, or even an initiation?
Man, it's freaking me out. Totally freaking me out.
USS Cyclops. In 1918, the USS Cyclops vanished on its way from Barbados to Baltimore, carrying 300 crew members and a load of manganese ore. Its last message on March 4th was routine, but the ship never reached its destination. Despite extensive searches, the ship and its crew were never found, sparking theories about the Bermuda Triangle. Some suspected mechanical failure or a sudden storm, but no concrete evidence surfaced. The creepiest part? Many voyagers often claim to have spotted the USS Cyclops, but it never stays long enough to be discovered. To this day, the USS Cyclops remains one of the most puzzling maritime disappearances, with no sign of wreckage or survivors, adding fuel to the mysteries of the Atlantic. Ogasawara's return. Here's a somber look at the Ogasawara Islands in Japan, where in 2021, a mysterious fleet reappeared over the shore due to recent turbulent activity. For a while, most people were terrified of these ghost ships because they couldn't really identify them or pinpoint their passengers. However, after experts carefully explored the ships, they discovered these were Japanese warships, evidently sunk by the US during the World War. Surprisingly, they had come up to the shore a good decades after being sunk. Sometimes the ocean is scary, but not for the reasons we think, but for the experiences it shares. The Kaz. The Kaz II, a small yacht, was found abandoned near Australia in 2007, with no trace of its 3 experienced sailors. The scene on board was eerie, meals were untouched, and the engine was still running. Investigators found no signs of foul play. A video recorded before the disappearance showed calm seas, adding to the confusion. Speculations ranged from accidental falls overboard to sudden storms, but no evidence confirmed any theory, mainly because this can't just have happened to all of the men. 1, maybe 2, perhaps, but all 3 vanished without a trace? The mystery was afoot, but researchers still haven't figured out what could have gone wrong. Octavius. The Octavius set sail in 1761 for China, but disappeared while attempting the risky Northwest Passage. 14 years later, in 1775, the whaling ship Herald found it drifting off Greenland. In 1775, a whaling ship, Herald, found the Octavius adrift near Greenland. On board, the crew was discovered frozen in place, including the captain, still holding a pen above his logbook. Scientists claim that the sea and the location had given the crew the perfect environment to stay preserved, but some suggest there's a bigger play here. Accordingly, it's possible the entire crew somehow ventured into a time skip, or even another portal, but couldn't survive, and were thus forced to spend eternity like this. The last goodbye. At just 16, Abby Sunderland set out to become the youngest person to sail solo around the world. Things were going well until June 10, 2010, when her yacht, Wild Eyes, capsized between Africa and Australia. Its mast broke, leaving Abby stranded in the remote Indian Ocean. 2 days later, a French trawler rescued her, but her yacht was lost to the sea, or so it seemed. A decade later, Abby received shocking news. Wild Eyes had been spotted off Australia's coast, 12 miles south of Kangaroo Island. Though covered in barnacles from years at sea, its discovery brought back a flood of emotions for Abby. Shortly after being found, the yacht sank again, as if bidding Abby one last goodbye. The Sulfur Queen. The SS Marine Sulfur Queen departed from Beaumont, Texas on February 2, 1963, carrying molten sulfur and a full crew. It was en route to Norfolk, Virginia, but the ship never arrived. After losing contact 2 days into the journey, search efforts found no trace of the vessel. The Coast Guard declared it lost on March 6, 1963. A life raft linked to the ship washed ashore near Florida, raising questions about what truly happened, because it really looked like the crew had been forced off. Theories ranged from structural issues to supernatural forces, but the fate of the Sulfur Queen remains unknown. Connemara IV. Patrick D. Hennessy, a prominent businessman, set off on a celebratory voyage aboard the Connemara IV in spring 1965. Joining him were his wife, Sheila, and a close friend, Simon Davy. Their journey from the Caribbean to Ireland seemed to go smoothly until June, when the yacht failed to arrive. The last known contact with the yacht on June 3rd placed it 500 miles west of the Azores. Nothing unusual was reported, yet the vessel disappeared without a trace. A joint search effort by American and European teams turned up no leads. Later, a Norwegian tanker found the Connemara IV drifting 1,200 miles from Ireland, clearly abandoned. To this day, the fate of its passengers remains an unsolved mystery.